Okay guys, so today we're gonna go over how to do your osmosis in potatoes lab. It's a pretty complicated lab, so you're gonna be using this in class to just follow along and get all the directions, okay? You should be following along with this with the handout in your Google Classroom called Osmosis in Potatoes. All right, so we have a lot of materials here. We've got 6 test tubes. We've got a bunch of solutions here of sucrose that are varying from 0 molar to 1 molar. So low concentration of sucrose to high concentration of sucrose. We also have potatoes that you should have brought in from home and your potato core. All right. So the first thing you want to do is we want to label our glassware to make sure we don't get any of it mixed up. So grab your Sharpie, and for each of your test tubes, you're going to label them with the appropriate sucrose solution concentration. So I'll start with a 0 molar, so I'll put a 0 on this one. Then I'll put a 0.2 molar on this one, and a 0.4 molar on this, and so on until I get all the way to 1. All right, so I'll just be showing you one of these examples, okay? So now I've labeled each of my test tubes with the appropriate sucrose solution concentration. And notice that I've color-coded the sucroses so that you can keep track of it. So the next thing you're going to do is you want to add the appropriate sucrose solution to these test tubes. So for example, I'm going to show you the 0.4, right? So on my label, I wrote down 0.4 molar concentration. And I'm going to take the red, that's the 0.4 molar one. Read the label on the glassware as well. You should have a graduated cylinder, and you will measure out 20 centimeters cubed of this. Okay, you should make yours more accurate than I just did, but I've got about 20 centimeters cubed in here. I will pour that into the appropriate test tube. And once you've poured out all of your solutions, they should all have a similar volume. All right, so now I have my sucrose solutions in the appropriate test tubes. My next step is I need to make my potato cores. So you're gonna grab the potato that you brought, and you're gonna use this core. It's got some sharp teeth on the end. So you're going to make one nice clean hole through it, kind of doing a twisting motion with the apple core. So I puncture it and I twist until I get all the way through. And then I can pull it back out, and you can see that I get a nice apple core, or in this case, a potato core. So I'll put that down, and according to your directions, you need to now cut this potato core into 1 centimeter wide slices. So use your scalpel. It's very sharp, so be careful with this. Line up your ruler, and I'll just cut off the end where the skin is so that I have a straight starting point. And then I line it up with my ruler and I cut it off at 1 centimeter increments. Okay, so I went ahead and I cut a few 1 centimeter increments. Now with each of these 3 1 centimeter increments, I'm also going to cut them in half. All right, so I go ahead and cut this one in half, cut this one in half, cut all of them in half. Now for each of these 3 that I've cut in half, I need to then measure the mass of each of these pieces of potato. So over here I have my balance. I've got a weighing boat on it. So I put my weighing boat on there, and I'm going to tare it, so bring my scale to 0. Now, it's very important that you keep track of the mass of each of these potatoes. So, because even though I cut them 1 centimeters apart, each of these have slightly different masses. So I've drawn up a little table on a laminated piece of paper with a marker, like this, where I can organize my potato pieces so I don't get them mixed up. So I recommend that you draw one of these out. And so right now I'm doing the 0.4 molar solution. So what I do is for my first half slice, I go ahead and put it on my scale, And on my data table on my Google Doc, I'm gonna write down the mass that comes out on my scale. Now remember, this is for the 0.4. So for 0.4 here, and it is my first trial. So I'm gonna put this right there, like that. And then I will repeat for another potato core, my second one. Remember to tear this again, put the potato core in there, record the mass, and then transfer this over to my paper where I'll put it now for the second trial. I repeat again for the third, put it down, record the mass, transfer it over here for the third. Okay. So now I essentially have made 3 trials of the 0.4 molar solution. You will repeat this for every molar solution. All right, and they're nice and organized now on this table that you've drawn out. All right. So this has given you the initial mass of each of your potato pieces. The goal is to put each of these into your test tubes and then to wait overnight and see how their mass changes, right? And there we can learn a little bit about osmosis, the movement of water. Now, we also have to keep track of where we put these 3 cores. So again, now I take my 0.4 molar test tube. Now I'm going to take the first trial and I can drop it into my liquid. I take my second trial, drop it into my liquid, and I take my third trial, drop it into my liquid. Now, in case you forget the order that you put these potatoes in, I highly recommend they're stacked on top of each other in the test tube. So at the very bottom, I'm going to put 1, and then 2, and then 3. Just so that I can see and remember which trials are where. So now notice how these potatoes sank immediately to the bottom. But for some of your solutions, the potatoes might float. In those cases, you can put something heavy on top to weight it down. So something like a heavy piece of metal like this, you can just plop it on top of it to help the potatoes be completely submerged. You're going to repeat this for each of your 6 solutions. And now you're going to cover the lid because we want to leave it covered overnight. So you're going to cut out a little bit of parafilm. Okay, so it's this little paper here. Let me grab some scissors. So you'll get a little piece of parafilm like this. It is a kind of stretchy plastic material. You open it up, and on your test tube, you can pinch it and just kind of stretch it over, and it seals itself on top. Okay, so it's no longer open to the environment. And we're going to leave this like this overnight. So you've repeated all your trials. Now it's the following day. So you're going to come back into class. You're going to take your solutions. They've all waited overnight. You're going to remove the parafilm. You can drain the liquid in here. And now you're going to measure the mass of each of these pieces again, so that we can see how did the mass of your potatoes change overnight based on the concentration of sucrose solution they were put in. And then you can put that in your data table as the final mass. All right, so that's the basics outline of the lab. I'll see you in the lab to do it. Bye-bye.